5 years of marriage. That's about 35 in dog years, or roughly the lifespan of most people's New Year's resolutions. I was setting the table with our wedding china, the stuff we never used because it was too nice, when Celia walked into the dining room wearing that expression. You know the one. The same look she got when she had to fire someone at work or explain to her mother why we couldn't make Sunday dinner again. "Warren," she said, smoothing her skirt with nervous fingers. "We need to talk." I continued arranging the silverware with mathematical precision. Fork on the left, knife on the right, spoon beside it. Simple rules for a complicated world. "Sure, but first, let me guess. You hate the flowers I picked up, or you think I should have made reservations somewhere instead of cooking?" "No, the flowers are lovely." She touched the roses briefly, like they might bite. "And dinner smells wonderful." I'd spent 3 hours on that meal, herb-crusted salmon, roasted asparagus, her favorite wine chilling in the bucket. The works. Because that's what you do on your 5th anniversary. You make an effort. You pretend the spark isn't flickering like a candle in a hurricane. "Then what's eating you?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Had known for months, actually. Ever since our shared cloud storage betrayed her little secret. Amazing how technology makes liars of us all. One misplaced photo sync, and suddenly I'm reading text messages that weren't meant for my eyes. Celia sat down heavily, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, about other things." "Other things?" I poured the wine, watching the golden liquid catch the candlelight. "That's delightfully vague." "Don't be sarcastic, Warren. This is hard enough." "Then maybe you should just say it." I settled into my chair, cutting into the salmon with surgical precision. "Whatever it is, just get it out there. We're both adults." She took a gulp of wine, more of a chug, really, and set the glass down with trembling fingers. "I still have feelings for my ex, for Trent. I need to explore them." There it was, the confession I'd been expecting since March, when I'd discovered her late-night texting sessions and those mysterious work dinners that never seemed to involve anyone from her actual office. The funny thing about betrayal is that it rarely comes as a surprise. It builds slowly, like pressure in a tea kettle, until the inevitable whistle screams. I chewed my salmon thoughtfully, letting the silence stretch between us like a taut wire. Celia shifted in her seat, clearly expecting an explosion that wasn't coming. "Okay," I said finally. "Okay?" Her voice climbed an octave. "That's it? That's your response? What would you prefer? Should I throw the wine glasses against the wall, storm out, challenge Trent to a duel at dawn?" I took another bite, savoring the herbs. "You said you need to explore your feelings, so explore them." The color drained from her face. This wasn't going according to her script, whatever that script might have been. Maybe she'd expected tears, pleading, promises to change. Maybe she'd wanted a fight that would justify what she'd already been doing behind my back. "You're not even angry?" she whispered. "Oh, I'm furious," I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "But not for the reasons you think." "I don't understand?" "I'm angry at myself for pretending not to notice, for acting surprised when I've known about your little renaissance with Trent since spring." I set down my fork and looked at her directly. "You've been texting him for months, Celia. Meeting him for coffee, lunch, those mysterious evening walks around the neighborhood. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish gasping for air. "How did you—" "Our shared photo stream. Remember that feature you insisted we set up so we could stay connected? Turns out it also shares screenshots, including the ones you took of his messages before responding." I smiled, and it felt like winter. "Quite the romantic, our Trent. Can't stop thinking about your laugh. Wish things had been different. Classic stuff." Tears started flowing then, mascara tracking down her cheeks in dark rivulets. "Warren, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. It just did." "Things don't just happen, Celia. People make choices. You chose to respond to his first message. You chose to meet him for coffee. You chose to lie to me about where you were going." I stood up, collecting the plates with the methodical efficiency of a waiter clearing a table. "And now you're choosing to leave, so leave." "I'm not leaving. I just need time to figure things out." "Same thing." I scraped her barely touched dinner into the trash, each motion deliberate and final. "You can't explore feelings for another man while married to me. That's not how this works." "But what if I'm making a mistake? What if I regret this?" I turned to face her, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Then you'll have to live with it. Just like I'll have to live with the fact that my wife would rather chase a ghost from her past than work on the life we built together. She was sobbing now, ugly crying that made her nose red and her breathing ragged. I love you, Warren. I do. But I need to know if what I felt for Trent was real. It was real, I said. Real enough that you've been nurturing it for months instead of talking to me about whatever's missing in our marriage. Real enough that you planned this whole confession for our anniversary dinner, like some kind of twisted gift. That's not, I didn't plan. Sure you did. You've been building up to this for weeks. The distant behavior, the picking fights over nothing, the way you've been pulling away physically and emotionally. You've been preparing me for this moment, making it easier to walk away. I moved to the front closet and pulled out 2 suitcases. Her suitcases, the matching set her mother had given her for our honeymoon. I'll help you pack. Warren, please. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try counseling or... No. The word came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't soften it. You want to explore your feelings for another man. Fine. But you don't get to keep me as a backup plan while you do it. She followed me upstairs, still crying, still protesting, but I'd stopped listening. In our bedroom, soon to be just my bedroom, I began pulling her clothes from the dresser with mechanical efficiency. Underwear, pajamas, work clothes, everything folded neatly and placed in the suitcase like I was packing for a business trip. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. Your parents' house? A hotel? Trent's place? I shrugged. That's your problem now. This is crazy. You're being crazy. I'm being logical. You can't have both of us, Celia. You made your choice when you started texting him. Everything since then has just been you working up the courage to admit it. By the time I finished packing, she'd stopped crying and started getting angry. Good. Anger was easier to deal with than tears. Fine, she said, her voice sharp with wounded pride. Maybe this is for the best. Maybe we both need space to figure out what we really want. Maybe we do. I carried her suitcases downstairs and set them by the front door. The house felt different already, like the air pressure had changed. Lighter, somehow. Or maybe that was just my imagination. I'll call you in a few days, she said, hesitating at the threshold. When I've had time to think? Take all the time you need. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger, which maybe she was. The Warren she'd married would have fought for her, would have begged her to stay, would have promised to be better, different, whatever she needed. But that Warren had been slowly suffocating under the weight of her indifference for months. This Warren, the one standing in the doorway watching his wife leave for another man, was someone new, someone harder. I love you, she said one more time, like a prayer or a curse. I know, I replied. That's what makes this so tragic. After she left, I cleaned up the dinner dishes, wrapped the leftover salmon, and put the good china back in the cabinet. Then I opened a bottle of bourbon, the expensive stuff we'd been saving for a special occasion, and called Derek. How'd the anniversary dinner go? He asked. She left me for her ex. Jesus, are you okay? I'm great, I said and meant it. Want to come over? I've got bourbon and a story that'll make your divorce look like a fairy tale. On my way. I hung up and poured another drink, settling into my chair, not our chair, my chair, and smiled. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Derek arrived 20 minutes later with a bag of ice and a grim expression. He's been my best friend since college, survived his own marital implosion 2 years ago, and possessed the kind of dark wisdom that only comes from watching your life explode in slow motion. So she actually said it, he said, settling into Celia's chair with his bourbon. After all those months of you pretending not to notice her sneaking around. She needed to explore her feelings. I savored the words like fine wine. On our anniversary, over herb-crusted salmon. That's cold, even for Celia. Derek had never liked my wife, though he'd been diplomatic about it. Too polite to say what he really thought until now, apparently. She's been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The whole confession was just theater. Performance art, I agreed. She wanted me to fight for her, make a scene, give her a reason to feel guilty about what she's been doing behind my back. Instead, you helped her pack. I'm a gentleman. We drank in comfortable silence for a while, the bourbon warming my chest and clarifying my thoughts. Outside, the neighborhood was settling into its evening rhythm. Dogs being walked, porch lights flickering on, the distant sound of a lawnmower making one last pass before dark. What's your next move? Derek asked. Nothing dramatic. I'm going to let her explore her feelings with Trent, just like she wanted. And then? Then I'm going to explore some feelings of my own. Derek raised an eyebrow. Such as? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Noelle Graham, Celia's best friend since high school, or former best friend, depending on how you looked at it. Heard about tonight? Are you okay? I showed Derek the message. He whistled low. That was fast. Celia must have called her from the car. Probably crying about how cold and heartless I was. I'm fine, I texted back. Better than fine, actually. Can I come over? I brought wine. Derek grinned. Well, looks like you're not the only one with feelings to explore. Noelle's just being a good friend. To who? Because last I checked, Celia was the one who just walked out. He had a point. Noelle had always been different from Celia's other friends. Smarter, funnier, less concerned with appearances and social climbing. She taught 3rd grade, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and had never married despite being beautiful enough to have her pick of men. I'd always wondered why she and Celia were so close, given how different they were. Sure, I replied. Fair warning, Derek's here and we're working on a bottle of bourbon. Even better, I'll bring reinforcements. She's coming over, I told Derek. This should be interesting. Noelle arrived 40 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a grocery bag full of supplies. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that made her look younger than 32. Comfort food, she announced, unpacking the bag on my kitchen counter. Ice cream, chocolate, those terrible frozen burritos you love, and enough wine to make this whole situation seem funny instead of tragic. You're a saint, Derek said. I'm a pragmatist. Warren's going to need friends right now, and Celia's going to need space to make her mistakes. She said it so matter-of-factly that I almost missed the implication. Mistakes? Oh, honey. Noelle opened the wine with practiced efficiency. You don't seriously think this thing with Trent is going to work out, do you? I hadn't really thought about it. Well, I have. Trent Parker is a 36-year-old gym owner who still posts shirtless selfies on Instagram and refers to women as females. He's got the emotional depth of a puddle and the attention span of a goldfish. Celia's going to figure that out in about 2 weeks. Derek laughed. Tell us how you really feel. I feel like my best friend is an idiot who just threw away the best thing that ever happened to her for a guy who peaked in high school. Noelle poured 3 generous glasses of wine. But that's her choice to make. We moved to the living room, where Noelle curled up on the couch like she belonged there, which, oddly enough, she did. I'd never noticed how comfortable she was in my house, how she knew where everything was, how she moved through the space like she'd been there 100 times. How long has this been going on? She asked. The thing with Trent, I mean. Months, since March at least. I knew it, she shook her head. She's been weird all spring, asking strange questions about loyalty and forgiveness and whether I thought people could change. She was testing the waters. She was looking for permission. Celia's always needed validation for everything she does, even when she knows it's wrong. That was true. Celia had never made a major decision without consulting her friends, her parents, her horoscope, and probably her barista at Starbucks. The fact that she'd been carrying on with Trent for months without telling anyone, especially Noelle, suggested she knew exactly how it would be received. She called me tonight, Noelle continued, right after she left here, crying about how cold you were, how you didn't fight for her. What did you tell her? I told her that maybe if she'd wanted you to fight for her, she shouldn't have been texting her ex for 6 months. Derek nearly choked on his wine. You said that? I said a lot of things, most of them true, none of them particularly nice. Noelle's smile was sharp around the edges. She hung up on me. So you came here. I came here because my best friend just made the stupidest decision of her life, and I wanted to make sure you weren't sitting alone feeling sorry for yourself. I wasn't. Good. Because this isn't your fault, Warren. Whatever problems you two had, she handled them in the worst possible way. We talked until nearly midnight, the conversation flowing as easily as the wine. Noelle had opinions about everything, Celia's selfishness, Trent's obvious shortcomings, the way their mutual friends would probably react to the news. She was funny and sharp and surprisingly cynical, nothing like the sweet elementary school teacher I'd always assumed her to be. I should go, she said eventually, but she made no move to leave. You could stay, I said, the words surprising me as much as her. I mean, it's late, and you've been drinking. The guest room is made up. That would be complicated. Everything's complicated now. She looked at me for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Are you sure? I'm sure. Derek cleared his throat. And that's my cue to leave. He stood up, swaying slightly. Call me tomorrow, Warren. We'll figure out your next move. After he left, the house felt different again. Quieter, but not empty. Noelle helped me clean up the glasses and bottles, moving around the kitchen like she'd done it 1,000 times before. "Thank you," I said, "for coming over, for listening, for everything." "You don't have to thank me. We're friends." "Are we? I mean, you're Celia's friend. I just came with the package." She turned to face me, her expression serious. "Warren, I've been friends with Celia since we were 17, but I've been watching her treat you like an accessory for the last 2 years, and it's made me sick. You deserve better than that." "Better than what?" "Better than being taken for granted. Better than being someone's safe choice while they fantasize about their exciting ex. Better than a wife who sees you as a provider instead of a partner." The words hit harder than I'd expected. "Is that how you see it?" "That's how everyone sees it, except you, apparently." She was standing close enough that I could smell her perfume, something light and floral, completely different from Celia's heavy, expensive scents. For a moment, I wondered what would happen if I kissed her, what it would feel like to be with someone who actually wanted to be there. "I should show you to the guest room," I said instead. "Right, of course." But neither of us moved. We stood there in my kitchen, the air thick with possibility and wine and the strange intimacy that comes from sharing secrets in the dark. "Warren?" "Yeah?" I'm glad she left. Before I could respond, she was gone, padding upstairs to the guest room with her overnight bag. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after that, trying to process everything that had happened in the space of a few hours. My wife had left me for her ex. Her best friend had taken my side. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee and bacon, which was impossible since I hadn't bought bacon in months. Celia had put us both on some ridiculous diet she'd read about in a magazine, all quinoa and kale and joyless protein shakes that tasted like punishment. Noelle was in my kitchen, fully dressed and cooking breakfast like she owned the place. She'd found the good coffee, the stuff I'd hidden from Celia because she thought it was too expensive, and somehow located bacon in the depths of my freezer. "Morning, sunshine," she said without turning around. "How do you like your eggs?" "However you're making them." "Scrambled it is." I poured myself coffee and watched her work. She moved with easy confidence, humming something under her breath, completely comfortable in what had been Celia's domain for 5 years. It should have felt strange, wrong even, but it didn't. It felt natural. "Sleep well?" I asked. "Better than I have in months. Your guest bed is amazing." Celia picked out the mattress. Well, she got something right. My phone had been buzzing all morning with texts and missed calls. The news of our separation had apparently spread through our social circle like wildfire, which wasn't surprising. Celia had never been able to keep a secret, and her dramatic exit last night had probably been followed by a series of tearful phone calls to anyone who would listen. "Popular this morning?" Noelle asked, nodding toward my phone. "Everyone wants the gossip. Amazing how fast word travels." "Small town, big mouths. What are you telling them?" "Nothing yet. I figure I'll let Celia control the narrative for now." "That's generous of you." "It's strategic. Let her tell her side first, get everyone's sympathy. Then, when the truth comes out, and it always does, the contrast will be even more damaging." Noelle turned to look at me, spatula in hand. "That's surprisingly devious." "I'm full of surprises." We ate breakfast at the kitchen table, the same table where Celia had confessed her feelings less than 12 hours ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since then. Noelle had found the morning paper and was reading me the local news in dramatic voices, making me laugh for the first time in weeks. "I should go," she said eventually. "People will talk if my car's here too long." "Let them talk." "Are you sure? Because once this gets out, and it will get out, there's no taking it back. Celia will never forgive either of us." "Good. Maybe she'll finally understand what she threw away." Noelle studied my face like she was trying to read my mind. "You're really done with her, aren't you?" "I was done with her months ago. I just didn't want to admit it." "And this thing with us? What is this?" It was a fair question, and I wished I had a simple answer. "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out." She smiled. A real smile. Not the polite social version she usually wore. "Me too." After she left, I called in sick to work and spent the day fielding phone calls from concerned friends and family. Everyone wanted to know what had happened, if I was okay, whether there was anything they could do. I gave them all the same response. Celia had decided she needed space to figure some things out, and I was respecting her wishes. The truth, but not the whole truth. Not yet. Derek came by around lunch with sandwiches and beer. "How are you holding up?" "Better than expected. Noelle stayed over." "In the guest room?" in the guest room. We're not animals, Derek. Just checking. So what's the plan? I'd been thinking about that all morning. Phase 1 is simple. Let Celia dig her own grave. She's probably telling everyone that I was cold and unsupportive, that our marriage was loveless, that she had no choice but to seek comfort elsewhere. And you're just going to let her? For now, because Phase 2 is going to be so much more satisfying. Derek grinned. I love it when you get that look in your eyes. What's Phase 2? Patience and documentation. I showed him the screenshots I'd been collecting for months. Not just Celia's messages with Trent, but her conversations with other friends where she'd complained about our marriage, mocked my appearance, and generally painted herself as a martyr trapped in a loveless relationship. Jesus, Warren, she really said all this? That's just the beginning. She's been building a case against our marriage for months, probably to justify what she was already doing with Trent. This is brutal. This is evidence, and when the time comes, I'm going to use every bit of it. My phone rang while we were talking. Celia's mother, probably calling to lecture me about my failures as a husband. I let it go to voicemail, then played it back on speaker. Warren, dear, I just spoke with Celia. She's devastated, absolutely heartbroken. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this coldness, this refusal to fight for your marriage, it's not like you. She's staying here for now, but she needs to know that you're willing to work on things. Call me back. Derek snorted. Wow, she's really committed to this narrative. Celia's always been good at playing the victim, but she's never had to deal with consequences before. What kind of consequences? The kind that come from burning bridges with the wrong people. That evening, I got a text from Noelle. Dinner tomorrow? My place this time. Looking forward to it, I replied. Fair warning, Celia called me 6 times today. I didn't answer. Good. Let her wonder. You're terrible. I'm learning. The next day at work, I ran into Jennifer Walsh from Celia's office at the coffee shop down the street. Jennifer had always been friendly, one of those people who remembered your name and asked about your weekend plans. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. Warren, hi, how are you? I heard about... I'm fine, Jennifer. Thanks for asking. If there's anything I can do, or if you need to talk... Actually, there is something. Celia mentioned she'd been working late a lot lately, staying for those team dinners and client meetings. I was wondering if you knew anything about that. Jennifer's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, realization, and finally pity. Warren, there haven't been any team dinners. Not since the holidays. Are you sure? I'm sure. And the client meetings? Those are usually just Celia and her boss. And they're always during regular business hours? I see. I'm sorry, I thought you knew. I did know. I just needed someone else to confirm it. That night, I drove to Noelle's apartment with a bottle of wine and a lighter heart than I'd had in months. She lived in a converted Victorian downtown, the kind of place that had character instead of square footage. Her apartment was warm and cluttered in all the best ways. Books everywhere, plants on every windowsill, art that looked like it meant something instead of just filling space. This is nice, I said, looking around. It's small, but it's mine. No compromises, no committee decisions about paint colors or furniture. Sounds perfect. She'd made pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread, and a salad that actually looked appetizing instead of punitive. We ate by candlelight, talking about everything except my marriage and her friendship with Celia. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in months. Can I ask you something? She said over dessert. Shoot. When did you know? About Celia and Trent, I mean. March 15th. She took a screenshot of one of his messages and it synced to our shared album. Something about missing her laugh and wishing he'd fought harder for her the first time around. And you didn't say anything? What was I supposed to say? Hey, honey, I know you're having an emotional affair with your ex, but could you please stop? She would have denied it, gotten better at hiding it, and I would have looked like a paranoid husband. So you waited. I gathered evidence, documented the lies, the late nights, the mysterious phone calls. I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made any decisions. That's very methodical. It's survival. Celia's always been good at rewriting history, making herself the hero of every story. I needed proof of what really happened. And now you have it. Now I have it. We moved to her couch after dinner, sharing a bottle of wine and talking about safer subjects. Her students, my work, the book she was reading. But there was an undercurrent of something else, a tension that had nothing to do with my failed marriage and everything to do with the woman sitting next to me. I should probably go, I said eventually. Probably. But neither of us moved. We sat there in her living room, the space between us charged with possibility, until finally she leaned over and kissed me. It was nothing like kissing Celia. No calculation, no performance, just honest desire, and the kind of chemistry I'd forgotten existed. When we broke apart, she was smiling. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," she said. "How long?" "Since your wedding day." That's a long time to wait. Some things are worth waiting for. I stayed until nearly midnight, kissing her on the couch like teenagers, talking about everything and nothing, learning the shape of her thoughts and the sound of her laugh. When I finally left, I felt like a different person than the one who'd arrived. My phone was full of missed calls and messages when I got home. Celia, her mother, several mutual friends who'd apparently been enlisted in the campaign to bring me to my senses. I deleted them all without listening and went to bed with Noelle's perfume still clinging to my clothes. Tomorrow, I decided, phase 2 would begin. 3 weeks. That's how long Celia's grand romantic adventure lasted. 3 weeks of exploring her feelings. Before Trent did what everyone except Celia knew he would do, he found someone younger, prettier, and significantly less complicated. The news came through Derek, who'd heard it from his bartender friend Mike, who'd witnessed the whole ugly scene at Flanagan's pub downtown. Apparently, Celia had shown up expecting to find Trent alone and instead discovered him with his tongue down the throat of some 26-year-old fitness instructor named Amber. It was spectacular, Derek reported over coffee. Full-scale meltdown in front of half the neighborhood. Tears, accusations, thrown drinks, the works. Poor Celia, I said, not meaning it. Poor Celia nothing. She made her bed, now she gets to lie in it, alone. Has she called you? 16 times since yesterday. I've been letting it go to voicemail. Smart man. She's probably going to show up here eventually. You know that, right? I'd been expecting it, actually. Celia had never been good at accepting defeat, and the humiliation of being dumped so publicly would only make her more desperate to salvage something from the wreckage of her choices. Let her come. I'm ready. And I was ready. The past 3 weeks had been a revelation in more ways than one. Without Celia's constant criticism and emotional manipulation, I'd remembered who I used to be. The person I'd been before marriage had worn me down into someone smaller, quieter, more apologetic. That person was gone now, replaced by someone harder and infinitely more interesting. Noelle had been a big part of that transformation. We'd been seeing each other almost every day, carefully at first, then with growing boldness as it became clear that Celia was too wrapped up in her own drama to notice what was happening right under her nose. Noelle was everything Celia wasn't, genuinely funny instead of performatively witty, interested in ideas instead of just appearances, comfortable in her own skin instead of constantly seeking validation from others. She's going to lose her mind when she finds out about you two, Derek said. That's the idea. You're really going to twist the knife, aren't you? I'm going to let her twist it herself. All I have to do is exist and be happy. My phone buzzed with a text from Noelle. Heard the news about Trent. How are you feeling? Vindicated, I replied. Want company tonight? Always. I'll bring ice cream. For celebration, not comfort. Perfect. Derek grinned. Let me guess. Noelle? She's bringing ice cream. I like her more every day. So do I. That evening, Noelle and I were sharing a pint of chocolate chip cookie dough on my couch when the doorbell rang. We looked at each other, both knowing exactly who it was. Showtime, Noelle said. You don't have to stay for this. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss it for the world. I opened the door to find Celia standing on my porch, looking like she'd been through a blender. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd had on yesterday, judging by the wrinkles. Warren, she said, her voice cracking. Can we talk? Sure, come in. She stepped inside, then froze when she saw Noelle curled up on the couch with a spoon in her hand and a distinctly proprietary air about her presence in what used to be Celia's living room. What is she doing here? Celia's voice climbed toward hysteria. Having dessert, I said calmly. Would you like some ice cream? I would like to speak to my husband privately. You're separated, husband, Noelle corrected, and I'm comfortable staying right here, thanks. Celia turned to me, her eyes wild. You're going to let her talk to me like that, in our house? My house, I said. You moved out, remember, to explore your feelings. That was temporary. That was... She stopped, seeming to realize how she sounded. Warren, please. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But it's over now, and I want to come home. What's over? The thing with Trent. It was stupid, meaningless. He was using me. No kidding. Don't be cruel. I'm hurting here. You're hurting because you got caught, not because you did anything wrong. Noelle made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Celia whirled on her. This is your fault, she snarled. You encouraged this. You wanted my marriage to fail. I wanted my friend to be happy, Noelle replied evenly. Turns out that meant getting her out of the way. You conniving little? Careful, I said, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. You're a guest here. Celia stared at me like I'd slapped her. A guest? Warren, I lived here for 5 years. This is my home. Was your home. Past tense? You can't be serious. You can't throw away our entire marriage because of one mistake. One mistake? I laughed, and it wasn't a nice sound. Celia, you've been planning this for months. The emotional affair, the lies, the systematic destruction of our relationship so you could justify running off with your ex. That's not a mistake. That's a campaign. That's not true. It's all true. I have the evidence. Her face went white. What evidence? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the folder I'd been building since March. Screenshots, saved voicemails, a detailed timeline of her deception. Every lie, every secret meeting, every nasty thing you said about me to your friends while you were building your case for why our marriage was doomed, it's all here. You spied on me. I paid attention. There's a difference. Celia looked around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. Noelle's jacket on the chair, 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, the easy intimacy between us that spoke of more than just comfort and friendship. How long has this been going on? She whispered. Which part? Noelle asked sweetly. The part where I realized what a selfish, manipulative person you really are, or the part where I decided to do something about it. You were supposed to be my friend. I was your friend. For 15 years, I listened to you complain about every man you dated, every job you had, every imagined slight from your family. I supported you through your wedding planning, your career changes, your endless drama, and the whole time, you treated Warren like he was some kind of consolation prize. That's not... It's exactly true. You married him because he was safe, stable, the kind of man your parents would approve of. But you never appreciated him, never saw how lucky you were. And when you got bored, instead of working on your marriage, you went looking for excitement with an ex-boyfriend who peaked in high school. Celia was crying again, but these weren't the calculated tears she'd used the night she left. These were ugly, desperate sobs that came from the realization that she'd lost everything and had no one to blame but herself. Warren, please, she begged. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. No, you don't, I said quietly. You love the idea of me, the security, the respectability, the way I made your life easier. But you don't love me, and you certainly don't respect me. That's not true. Then why did you tell your mother that I was boring in bed? Why did you tell Jennifer at work that you were settling when you married me? Why did you spend 6 months building a case against our marriage instead of trying to fix it? She had no answer for that, because there wasn't one. We all knew the truth. She'd been looking for an exit strategy for months, and Trent had simply provided the excuse she needed. I want you to leave now, I said. Warren, I want you to leave, and I want you to understand that this is over. Not paused, not on hold while you figure things out, over. I'm filing for divorce next week. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself. She looked at Noelle one more time, her expression full of betrayal and rage. I hope you're happy. I am, Noelle said simply. Happier than I've been in years. After Celia left, we sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Noelle spoke. That was harder than I thought it would be. Having second thoughts? About her? Never. About us? Sometimes. Why? Because this is going to get ugly, Warren. Really ugly. She's not going to just disappear quietly. She's going to make our lives as difficult as possible. Let her try. I'm not the same person I was 3 weeks ago. No, you're not. She studied my face in the dim light. You're harder now. More dangerous. Is that a bad thing? Not from where I'm sitting. She kissed me then, and I tasted possibility and revenge and the sweet satisfaction of a plan coming together perfectly. Celia had made her choice, and now she would have to live with the consequences. All of them. The divorce papers were served on a Tuesday morning while Celia was having coffee with her mother at their country club. I know this because Jennifer from her office texted me a photo of Celia's face when the process server found her at their usual table by the windows. The expression was priceless. Shock, humiliation, and the dawning realization that I'd meant every word I'd said. You're evil, Derek said when I showed him the picture. I respect that. I'm thorough. There's a difference. What's next? Now we wait for her to make the next move, and she will. Celia's never been able to resist escalating a situation. I was right. The next move came that evening in the form of a phone call from her lawyer, some expensive suit her father had recommended. The conversation was brief and predictable. They wanted to discuss terms, suggested mediation, implied that I was being unreasonable by refusing to work things out. Tell your client that the time for working things out was before she started texting her ex-boyfriend, I told him. Now we do this the legal way. Mr. Collins, I think you should know that Mrs. Collins is prepared to contest this divorce. She believes the marriage can still be saved. Mrs. Collins is welcome to believe whatever helps her sleep at night. The divorce is happening. She's also prepared to make certain claims about your behavior during the marriage, claims that might affect the settlement. I laughed. You mean she's going to lie about me being abusive or controlling? Go ahead. I have 6 months of documentation showing exactly who was manipulative in this relationship. The line went quiet for a moment. What kind of documentation? The kind that proves your client has been planning this separation for months while conducting an emotional affair with her ex-boyfriend. The kind that shows her systematically destroying our marriage while building a false narrative to justify her actions. The kind that will make her look very bad in front of a judge. I see. I doubt you do, but you will. Have a good evening. Noelle was waiting for me when I got home, sitting at my kitchen table with a bottle of wine and a stack of papers. How did it go? She asked. About as expected. They're going to try to paint me as the villain. Good luck with that. She gestured to the papers. I've been doing some research of my own. Oh? Turns out Trent's been quite the busy boy. 3 different women in the past month, including a married client whose husband is apparently looking for him. Interesting. Gets better. His gym is behind on rent. He owes money to several creditors, and there are rumors about some creative accounting with the membership fees. You've been thorough. I learned from the best, she smiled. Also, I may have mentioned some of these details to a few mutual friends. You know, just in conversation. Of course. Amazing how fast word spreads in a small town. That weekend, we put the final phase of my plan into motion. I'd been invited to a barbecue at Tom and Linda Morrison's house, one of those neighborhood gatherings where everyone shows up to drink too much and gossip about people who aren't there. Normally, Celia and I would have gone together, played the happy couple, made small talk about work and weekend plans. This time, I went with Noelle. The reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Conversation stopped when we walked into the backyard. People stared, whispered, tried to figure out how to react to this new dynamic. Noelle handled it perfectly, friendly but not apologetic, clearly comfortable in her role as my date. Warren! Linda Morrison rushed over, her face flushed with wine and curiosity. How are you holding up? We heard about you and Celia. I'm doing great, actually. Linda, you remember Noelle Graham? Oh, of course. Celia's friend. How nice that you're supporting Warren during this difficult time. I'm supporting him, all right, Noelle said with a smile that could have cut diamonds. We worked the party like politicians, making sure everyone saw us together, comfortable and happy. I told the story of Celia's departure with just enough detail to make it clear who had left whom and why. Noelle added her own observations about Celia's behavior over the past year, painting a picture of a woman who'd been systematically checking out of her marriage. I tried to talk to her, Noelle told a group of neighborhood wives. Tried to get her to appreciate what she had, but she was so focused on what she thought she was missing that she couldn't see what was right in front of her. It's so sad, one of them said. They seemed so happy. They seemed stable, Noelle corrected. There's a difference. By the end of the evening, the narrative had been established. Warren was the wronged party, Celia was the selfish wife who'd thrown away a good marriage for a fantasy, and Noelle was the loyal friend who'd helped pick up the pieces. It wasn't entirely true, but it was close enough to the truth that people could accept it. You're good at this, I told Noelle on the drive home. Years of managing third graders teaches you how to control a room. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Too late for that. I'm already on your good side, which is much more dangerous. The next morning, my phone started ringing early. Celia, calling from her parents' house, probably having heard about our public debut from one of her remaining friends. How could you do this to me? She sobbed into the phone. How could you humiliate me like this? I didn't humiliate you, Celia. You humiliated yourself. Bringing her to the Morrisons' party, parading around like some kind of couple. We are a couple. She was my best friend. Was being the operative phrase. Turns out she's a better judge of character than either of us gave her credit for. This is sick. This is twisted. You're both sick. We're happy. I realize that's a foreign concept to you, but some people actually enjoy each other's company. I'm going to destroy you both. With what? Your sterling reputation, your moral authority, your track record of loyalty and honesty? She hung up on me, which was probably for the best. I was just getting warmed up. The final confrontation came 2 weeks later, at the grocery store of all places. I was shopping for dinner. Noelle was coming over to cook, something she did 3 or 4 times a week now, when I turned down the cereal aisle and found Celia standing there with a cart full of frozen dinners and wine. She looked terrible, thinner than before, with dark circles under her eyes and the kind of brittle fragility that comes from too much stress and not enough sleep. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Warren. Her voice was carefully controlled, like she was afraid it might break if she spoke too loudly. Celia. You look good. I feel good. I heard you're buying a new car. The divorce settlement came through. I figured I'd celebrate. With my money. With the money you would have gotten if you hadn't committed adultery. There's a difference. Her composure cracked a little. It wasn't adultery. It was emotional. Tell that to the judge. He seemed to think there was a pretty clear pattern of deception and betrayal. I never slept with Trent while we were married. No, you just did everything else. You planned to leave me for him. You lied to me for months. You systematically destroyed our relationship to justify your actions. The only reason you didn't sleep with him was because you hadn't worked up the courage yet. That's not true. It's all true, and now everyone knows it. She leaned against her cart like she needed the support. I lost everything, Warren. My marriage, my best friend, my reputation. People crossed the street to avoid talking to me. Actions have consequences. You taught me that. I made a mistake. You made a choice. A series of choices, actually, all of which led to the same place. And you're happy about that? I considered the question seriously. Was I happy about her suffering? Not exactly. But was I satisfied that justice had been served? Absolutely. I'm happy that I'm free, I said finally. I'm happy that I found someone who actually wants to be with me. I'm happy that I don't have to pretend anymore that our marriage was something it wasn't. And Noelle, are you happy about what you did to our friendship? I didn't do anything to your friendship. You did that all by yourself when you decided to treat the people who cared about you like supporting characters in your personal drama. She was crying now, but quietly, like she didn't want to cause a scene in the cereal aisle. I loved you, Warren. I really did. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the security I represented, the way I made your life easier. But you never loved me enough to be honest with me, or to work on our problems instead of looking for an escape. And now it's too late. Now it's too late. I left her there in the grocery store, crying over her cart full of sad single-person meals, and drove home to Noelle. She was already in my kitchen, making something that smelled like heaven and humming the same song she'd been humming that first morning after Celia left. How was your day? She asked, kissing me hello. Perfect, I said, and meant it. Outside it started to rain, but inside my house, our house now, really, everything was warm and bright and exactly as it should be. Celia had gotten what she wanted, freedom to explore her feelings. And I had gotten what I wanted, freedom from her. Sometimes everyone wins, even when it doesn't look that way from the outside.